And to help us sort all this out is Alan Dershowitz, longtime scholar, longtime writer. Just had a great piece, by the way, in the Wall Street Journal called The Education of a Wartime President. Hey, Alan, great to have you with us, man.
Well, thanks a lot. You know, I have a new ebook called Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas, which really predicts what was going to happen with ISIS. What I said in that book was that just as Hamas uses human shields and uses what I call the dead baby strategy to put Israel to the choice, either don't fire back and let us fire against your civilians, or fire back and kill our civilians, that ISIS is doing the same thing now. They're embedding themselves in civilian areas. They're using human shields. They're about to take over a community of Kurds who are secular and pro-American and pro-democracy. And the real villain of the piece is Turkey. And, you know, I don't have to apologize to Turkey. I'm not the vice president. The leader of Turkey is a bigot and a selfish man who models himself on Putin and who is trying desperately to see how many Kurds can be killed because, you know, that's been the Turkish response historically to anybody who wants independence. You know, they massacred the Armenians. Now they're trying to massacre the Kurds. They are not reliable allies. They should be booted out of NATO immediately. When you can't count on an ally from NATO to even allow you to land your planes and use the airspace and use logistics, and when they stand idly by and watch a massacre like this, you just cannot count on Turkey as an ally. The United States has only one reliable ally in the Middle East, and that's Israel. And Israel should be in NATO, not Turkey.
Oh, you're right. I mean, they ought to kick them out. We've been saying that forever. I mean, half the time when any conflict comes up, they don't allow us what you would think an ally would do. And now they got 10,000 troops sitting there on the border. And as you said, they're not concerned about ISIS. All they're concerned about is Assad and the Kurds and their own self-interest. And so my argument, Alan, that I want to get you to weigh in on is that this whole 18-nation coalition in Turkey, and they're all going to send troops in. I mean, this thing is a facade. I mean, this thing is a feckless attempt, basically.
You're absolutely right. Look, to include Qatar, I mean, Qatar is a major financier of terrorism. They pay for Hamas. And then to start negotiating with Iran and to weaken our position on a potential Iranian nuclear weapon because Iran's going to help us defeat ISIS. Look, you're right from the beginning. I think the events of the last 3 years have made us appreciate autocrats in the Middle East. We should keep Sadat in power, notwithstanding the fact that he is a terrible leader of his people. We should have kept Mubarak in power in Egypt.
Yep.
And, you know, here I might disagree with you. I'm not so sure we benefited so much from getting rid of Saddam Hussein. He was a terrible tyrant.
With me, I'm a conservative and a Republican, probably the only person who was adamantly opposed to that war. I thought it made no sense. And our position from day one was like, when you look at the history of the Middle East, you need Saddam Hussein. You need Colonel Gaddafi. You need Assad and his father. I mean, these are the people that you basically need to run these countries so they don't run amok.
Oh, of course, and I think that was true even if you go back to the former Yugoslavia. Tito kept a group of tribal areas together, and as soon as that was over, you find this internecine warfare which killed so many people. So, look, I'm not a supporter of tyrants or autocrats, but we always have to ask ourselves, what's the least worst solution? And the least worst solution was maintaining the Shah in Iran and not allowing Khomeini to come into power, maintaining Assad, maintaining, you know, all of these tyrants and autocrats at least produced a level of stability in the Middle East, which was beneficial to the United States, beneficial to Israel, and ultimately beneficial to the people. You know, it's hard to say it's beneficial to have an Assad as your ruler, but who killed so many of his own people, and Saddam Hussein, who killed so many of his own people. But ISIS is going to be worse in every respect, and they're going to be engaged in more and more massacres, and this coalition is not going to do anything because nobody wants to put boots on the ground. And we're there helping to make a bad situation, if not better, possibly worse. And I like your Chamberlain analogy because I am worried that Barack Obama, who I voted for, may become the Chamberlain of the 21st century. if he, by his bad deal with Iran, which I suspect is coming, allows Iran to develop nuclear weapons after he leaves office, which is what I think the idea may be, kick the can down the road. Iran will never develop nuclear weapons on Obama's watch because Obama has made a promise not to allow that to happen. No, he broke his promise regarding Syria. But I think they will develop nuclear weapons based on this deal in the next administration. And then Obama will go down in history as the Neville Chamberlain of the 21st century, the man who didn't recognize the greatest evil of our time and allowed the arming of Iran. Because ISIS is a 2 or 3 year problem. Iran is a problem for the rest of the century if it gets nuclear weapons.
Alan, I want to get to what the solution is now. We felt that the bombing campaign by President Obama, telegraphing there'd be no troops, there was going to be coalition troops, we knew that was folly. So from the start, we thought that the air campaign was basically a politically driven poll number, focus group effort. Tell the American people before the midterms he did something, even though all of his advisors, we believe, said, look, this isn't going to work. Plus, he's not really outlined what a victory is, something about attainment and derailing them or some nonsense I couldn't figure out. What's our end game with ISIS here?
Well, it's very difficult to know. First of all, I don't agree that the bombing was necessarily poll-driven. Everything is poll-driven in all politics. But I do think that we have humanitarian interests in bombing ISIS, and I think the bombing of ISIS has slowed down a bit the incursion into Kurdish areas. But clearly we need to do more to prevent a humanitarian disaster. But, you know, you can ask the same question, and I ask it in my book, Terror Tunnels, about Israel. What is its end game? It didn't want to destroy Hamas because it doesn't want to create a vacuum in Gaza in which ISIS can fill that vacuum. I think the end game is simply to slow down. The president says to destroy ISIS. That won't happen without boots on the ground, and ultimately the only boots on the ground that could probably do it would be either American boots or Turkish boots, and Turkey does not seem to be interested in doing that. So I think what we're going to be doing is playing a kind of humanitarian slowdown game with ISIS in the hope that maybe we can prevent and delay humanitarian disasters. But, these guys don't play by the rules, just like Hamas. As I wrote in my book, Terror Tunnels, ISIS is to America as Hamas is to Israel. And we have to learn the lessons from Israel. Don't expect total victory. You know you're going to inevitably kill some civilians. The president canceled his idea that we have to have near certainty before we drop a bomb that no civilian will be killed. That's impossible. You can't conduct warfare that way. Neither Israel nor the United States can conduct warfare that way. So I don't think we're looking for victory. We're looking for some tolerable resolution. My prediction is Assad is going to remain in power, though weakened. ISIS is going to be strengthened. The United States is weakened in terms of its foreign policy. It is not a good situation.
No, it isn't. I'm going to play a clip here. As you know, the city of Kobani about to fall. I want to get your comments on that, Alan.
Sure.
New U.S.-led airstrikes near the Syrian border town of Kobani are helping Kurdish fighters push back the Islamic State militants a day after they appeared on the verge of seizing the town. But Secretary of State John Kerry is tempering expectations from Washington.
We're deeply concerned about the people of Kobani who are battling against ISIL terrorists. We conducted strikes both Monday and Tuesday and now. But as horrific as it is to watch in real time what's happening in Kobani, it's also important to remember you have to step back and understand the strategic objective.
Just across the border from Kobani in Turkey, crowds cheered and whistled as airstrikes appeared to hit militant positions.
Okay, so Kobani is going to fall. It looks like the U.S. has basically written it off. So what happens now?
Well, tragically, it's not just a question of Kobani falling. It's a question of its 12,000 or so citizens being put to the choice of the sword or conversion, if they're given that choice. ISIS sometimes doesn't give that choice. It simply beheads. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. There are going to be more and more humanitarian disasters like this because we cannot defeat ISIS from the air. We certainly cannot defeat ISIS in the air playing by the rules of engagement that Obama administration self-righteously announced a year ago, and he has now admitted that. My big concern, though, is that ISIS is deflecting attention from Iran, and that the president may, in the next months, give Iran a deal which they can't refuse, which will allow them to spin centrifuges, which will allow them to come close to developing nuclear weapons, and then they will be able to develop it within the next decade or so, which would bring the entire world in danger of Iran's nuclear weaponry. Remember, they've already said they would use their nuclear weapons if they developed them to wipe Israel off the map and to attack American allies all over the world, and it could result in bombs, suitcase bombs being brought into the United States. Because if Iran has nuclear weapons, it could give them to Hezbollah, which is a surrogate. And Hezbollah, we know, has engaged in terrorism against the United States over the years. So it's only getting worse. It's not getting better. And it's time for the administration to really come up with a firm policy. And the policy can't be apologizing to Turkey.
You hit the nail on the head. Hopefully we can come up with one. I think at the end of the day, we're going to get involved in a major war, and it isn't going to be 5,000 men. It's going to be 50 to 100 to get this thing resolved. I don't see any other way. Now that we're in it, I mean, what do we do? Just say, well, we're leaving? I mean,
no.
maybe at the start of this thing we could have walked away, but now we're sucked in. That was everybody's fear. Alan, I got 1 minute. You've got a new ebook coming out, Terror Tunnels. In 1 minute, can you tell our audience a little bit about it, and if they want to buy it, where do they go?
Well, first, it's Amazon. It's a Kindle book. It's available for about $5, and it basically tells the story of the tunnels. I was in the tunnels before the war began, and why Israel had to attack the tunnels, had to attack the rockets, and what the United States can now learn from Israel's actions in fighting ISIS. And of course, criticizes the United States for its criticism of Israel for not doing enough to prevent civilian casualties, when tragically the United States has had far more civilian casualties over the years when it's attacked terrorists in civilian enclaves. We live in a very tough world, and we have to make some very hard moral choices. At Terror Tunnels, I try to lay out those choices and lay out the comparisons between Israel's fights and America's fights.
Okay, Terror Tunnels by Alan M. Dershowitz. Just go to Amazon or Kindle, your favorite store. You can pick it up there. Alan, pleasure to have you on, sir. I hope we can get you back. Thank you so much.
Oh, please, anytime. Thank you.
All right, Alan. Thank you so much.